So one thing too around Christmas was quite a treat. I don't, these little old tiny marshmallows, of course you can still buy the big ones, but everybody's in these tiny ones now, and that's all right. But the they didn't have them those days. They had those big ones, those nice big ones. And we didn't have all this instant stuff, obviously. And Mom would take that pot and pour some pure cocoa in there and some sugar, and then she'd put a little fresh cow's milk in there and make kind of a paste out of it, make it go in. She would add fresh milk to it and bring that milk and that cocoa up, that chocolate milk, bring it up to where it just like a little simmer. And if you didn't drink it right away, it kind of foam a little film on top. I guess it's just fat, I guess, I don't know. But anyhow, she would pour that hot chocolate in that big old cup and put a marshmallow on top of there. You talk about a treat. That was quite a treat. That was quite a treat around Christmas. And I remember one time at Christmas, this guy, his name was Rock Kubish. He was related to the Kubishes that I used to go over where the Bonners live now. And he was pretty, he liked my dad and Mom, and I don't think he ever married. He would just go around neighbors and visit, and he was there one day, and I had my belt, and they were up there. They had their shoes off, because most of the time when your shoes were wet, and so you take them off, put them under the stove, and then put your feet up by the stove because your socks are normally wet, and you could see the steam a little bit sometimes because they'd get pretty warm right by the stove. I mean, it wouldn't go out very far, but you put it right up there. And I pulled this new belt I got off. It was one of them Western belts, and I kind of pulled it out of my shirt. It had that little metal tip on it. I kind of slung it over, and I hit him on his big toe. And my dad said, "Boy, you got to put that belt up. You do that again, you got to put that belt up. You can't play with it anymore." And I said, I learned a lesson there. I didn't do that anymore. But Rock Kubish was, he stayed over at the Bonners some because they were all related, and he had a little place back there, and he'd cut my hair every now and then. I'm telling you, that was a terrible experience. He literally would put a bowl on my head, just a bowl. And he would just cut around, and he had those hand clippers, when you put them together, the blades in there kind of slide back and forth. And he would just go around there, and I mean, it cut most of them, but it pulled, I believe, about a fourth of them. I mean, it hurt. But I sure didn't complain, but I sure didn't I dread getting a haircut, and I hope you understand why. And for a little bit of entertainment, my dad bought a radio from Western Auto, and it was about this big and about that long and about this high. And of course, it had the dials on the front, and you had to buy a battery in it. The battery was about 3/4 that size, and it slid in the back, and you just plugged it in. But you had to have an antenna, because it wouldn't work without an antenna. It wouldn't work very good anyway, because every time it lightning or a little bit of static 20 miles off, I'm exaggerating, it would affect that radio. But so he hooked up a line from one tree to another and just ran it over about 30 yards, and then he tied this antenna down here to this radio and ran it outside the window and ran it over there and hooked it up there, and that was our antenna. And my dad would sit on Saturday nights. Sometimes he'd sit right next to that radio because he was hard. He just didn't have much volume, but Bob Wells and the Texas Playboys would come on, and he would sit there and listen to that, static and all. He would sit there and listen to Bob Wells and the Texas Playboys come on, and that was kind of the only entertainment we had. I mean, as far as mechanical, I guess. And just a quick story. When my Uncle Henry would come down, Uncle Henry Juergens, he had a good job in San Antonio, really. He had a pretty good job. And he always had money. He always had a little money, but he never owned a car. He lived right next to where he worked. He'd always catch the Greyhound bus, and he'd let us know. I guess he wrote us that he's coming in on a certain day, and my dad would pick him up, and he'd always want to stay with us because Aunt Frida was on his case all the time about him drinking. She didn't like that too much. She was on her Uncle Bill, her husband. She was on his case too. But anyway, what a great guy he was. But nevertheless, Grandpa Bullock had, like I said, the front porch was an L-shaped. We came in on that side and it faced south, and then there was a back porch entrance on the back side, obviously, and you'd come up, and Grandpa decided that some shingles had to be replaced, and of course it was wood shingles. Everything was wood shingles, and I don't know how much they replaced, but there was a pretty good stack out there laying on the side there by the back entrance there. And where I'm going with this is, well, when Uncle Henry would come in, I think Mom kind of dreaded it because Uncle Henry liked to drink, and he always had a little money, and him and Daddy would play partners. And they would stay a little longer in the Dynamo Hall on Saturday than, because he'd usually come in on Saturday morning. And that didn't happen very often, but he'd come in. But anyway, so I went down and did my routine thing, trying to get him to come out, and that went on a little bit longer than normal, and normal wasn't good, but anyway, they were both pretty inebriated, but I mean, just calm as a cucumber. Some people get angry and fight. We didn't have that problem in our family, but anyway, finally got him out of there, and I don't know how we made it home, but we made it. We didn't run to any fence posts or anything, and because those old 6-volt batteries didn't put out too much light, but we made it home. And Mom went up those back steps. It looked like about 5 or 6 because the house was pretty high on the back side there. And Mom went up, and I went up, and Daddy took a few steps up, and a few steps up, and a few steps up, and he finally made it to the top. And Uncle Henry, he made it up about 3/4 way, and he didn't make it. He just went ka-choom, fell over on them shingles. He was laying out there like that. Daddy was looking down at him. Mama said, "Just leave him there. When he sobers up, he'll wake up and come in. Just leave him where he's at." So I think Daddy got the message, and I got the message. We didn't worry about Uncle Henry. He wasn't going anywhere. He wasn't going anywhere, that's for sure. So anyhow, somewhere during the night, I guess he got up and came in. So, anyway, that was Uncle Henry's story. But he was, and I'm gonna cut this off for a little bit because I gotta take a restroom break and see what time it is. But anyway, I gotta cut this off for a little bit, and I'll try to continue a little bit later.